They laughed in her face, doubted every word, and dismissed her without hesitation. What would you do if the room you fought to get into made you feel invisible? Let us know in the comment section below. Tyra Farley didn't fidget. She didn't twitch, didn't check her phone, didn't look to the left or right. She sat in the high-backed leather chair at the center of the chrome and glass conference room like it was made for her. Like she owned it. Like her name was already etched in the kind of money these men threw around like poker chips. All 5 feet and 4 inches of her sat upright, arms resting gently on the arms of the chair, chin tilted just slightly upward. Not from arrogance, but from survival. Across from her, 5 men in suits glanced down at the pitch deck printed on thick ivory paper. Their watches alone were worth more than her annual salary last year. One of them, Richard Ellison, lead investor at Davenhall Capital, chuckled. Not even discreetly. "Let me get this straight," Richard said, flipping a page without looking at it. "You want us to invest $5 million into an app to help poor people find health care?" Tyra blinked slowly. Her voice came smooth and low, the way her grandmother taught her to speak when surrounded by men who thought they knew more than her. "No, Mr. Ellison. I'm asking you to invest in the future, and this app is just the beginning." Another one leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin like she was a math problem he couldn't solve. "But poor people don't have money, Ms. Farley. How exactly do you expect to make us a return?" Tyra didn't sigh, didn't clench her jaw or let her face fall. She'd practiced for this. She'd done her market research, studied every case study from Harvard to the South Side. She knew her numbers, her impact model, her acquisition funnel, her pilot data. She knew her story. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was just how little that would matter once they saw who was sitting across from them. "I understand your concern," she said, sliding the final page toward them. "But this isn't a charity. It's a network that leverages strategic partnerships with local clinics, pharma companies, and insurers. We've already built out an AI-driven referral engine that reduces unnecessary ER visits by 35%. That alone saves the system millions." A pause. And then laughter. Like actual, full-bodied, lean-back, mouth-wide-open laughter. Richard smirked and closed the deck. "You've got guts, I'll give you that." The meeting ended exactly 90 seconds later. Tyra stood, collected her binder, nodded, and thanked them for their time. She didn't cry in the elevator. She didn't rage when she hit the lobby. She just walked, heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, jaw locked in a quiet war she refused to lose. Outside, the city hummed like it didn't even notice her pain. A black SUV sped past, splashing a line of cold slush across her knees. She wiped it off with the back of her hand. On the subway home, she stared straight ahead, barely blinking. No one saw the storm she was holding back. Hours earlier, before that humiliating roomful of condescension, Tyra sat in the tiny break room of her co-working space in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Her best friend Jada Monroe stirred oat milk into a chipped mug and watched her like a hawk. "You know they're going to try you, right?" Tyra smiled. "They can try, but they're not going to win. Just promise me something." Tyra looked up from her notes. "What?" "If they laugh, if they look at you like you're small, don't you let that mess get in your head." Tyra reached across the table and touched Jada's hand. "They've been laughing my whole life." That was true. They laughed when she said she wanted to go into tech instead of fashion. They laughed when she turned down Columbia's MBA program to keep coding out of her kitchen. They laughed when she turned down a 6-figure job at a startup so she could build something for people who looked like us. But Tyra Farley had one rule. You can laugh, but you will not stop her. The next morning she rolled out of bed in her studio apartment, her knees aching from sleeping on the pull-out sofa again because her actual bed doubled as inventory storage for her team's demo hardware. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter, glowing faintly from the slide deck she'd reworked until 2 a.m. She crossed the room, poured cold coffee into a mug, and hit play on a video from a virtual pitch contest she'd entered 2 months ago. The screen showed her natural curls pinned back, bright red blazer, no nonsense. Her voice came through the speaker. There is no app right now, none, that centers Black and brown communities when it comes to healthcare access. Not one that maps free clinics, not one that helps you book with culturally competent doctors, not one that speaks directly to the communities that've been ignored for decades. Tyra's reflection stared back at her from the laptop screen. She didn't smile. She nodded. In the same hour, Richard Ellison would toss her pitch deck into a trash bin made of mahogany and arrogance. Tyra was back in her space. Same room. Same whiteboard with the same 3 markers. Half dead. Her team of 3, Zoe, Caleb, and her younger brother Marcus, sat in folding chairs. "They pass?" Kalik asked. "Oh, they passed," Tyra replied, unlatching her backpack. "What did they say?" Marcus asked. Tyra looked up, held the silence for a beat, and then said flatly, "They laughed." No one moved. Then Zoe asked, "So, what's next?" Tyra pulled a small slip of paper from her pocket. It had no name on it, just a handwritten number. "I got this from one of the interns on my way out. She said her aunt runs a wellness fund out in the Bay, minority-led, seed stage. She said, quote, they're looking for someone who scares them, in a good way." The room came alive. Caleb grinned. Marcus pumped his fist. Zoe laughed out loud. Tyra just folded the paper and slid it into her wallet. Her eyes were already looking past them, past Brooklyn, past the walls, past the shame, past the billion-dollar no, and toward something bigger. The kind of bigger that couldn't be laughed away. Tyra Farley was trying not to scream in the middle of a Duane Reade. The self-checkout line was crawling, the barcode scanner kept freezing, and the man behind her was muttering about how people always hold up the line. Her hands were full, printer paper, off-brand granola bars for the team, and a bottle of ibuprofen because the tension in her neck had been grinding for 3 days straight. She'd maxed out 2 credit cards this week. She was rationing Wi-Fi at home, and someone had stolen her sandwich from the shared fridge again. She swiped her card and prayed. It declined. Tyra blinked, tried another. Approved. She didn't breathe until the receipt printed. On the walk back to the co-working space, the city pressed in hard. Siren wails bouncing between buildings, exhaust fuming from idling trucks, and the bitter scent of fried grease from the corner cart she couldn't afford today. She passed a couple arguing in front of a check-cashing place and a teenage girl dragging a baby stroller across a slush puddle. No one was smiling. No one ever smiled here, except her. Because underneath the exhaustion, the bruised pride, and the empty bank accounts, Tyra had something they couldn't see yet. A world that only existed in her head, built for people who had never been considered first. When she made it back, Caleb was hunched over the busted-up laptop they'd been sharing since his MacBook died. Zoe was on the floor, surrounded by sticky notes with scribbles and code fragments. Marcus was sketching on the whiteboard, his hoodie up, headphones in, deep in whatever version of heaven a graphic designer goes to when everything clicks. Tyra dropped the bag of snacks on the table and raised the bottle of ibuprofen like a trophy. Survival pack acquired. Caleb grinned. Queen of the budget aisle. Zoe raised a finger without looking up. "Please tell me you got the thermal paper." "Got it. And extra pens." "Pens?" Marcus ripped off his headphones. "Bless your soul." Tyra flopped into the beanbag chair she hated but had no choice but to use. It let out a defeated poof as she sank in. "Okay. Update me." Caleb turned the laptop so she could see the dashboard. "We had 47 app downloads overnight, mostly from the Bronx and South Philly. The clinic we partnered with last week sent out a push notification." Tyra leaned in, suddenly alert. "What's engagement like?" Zoe answered this time, scrolling through her tablet. 17 people completed a health screening, 12 got matched with a clinic, 2 already booked appointments. Tyra sat back. 12 people. 12 people who, yesterday, didn't know they could get help. 12 people who wouldn't have shown up in anyone else's metrics, but to her, they were everything. Marcus spun around in his chair. You thinking what I'm thinking? Tyra nodded. We need stories. Already started drafting, he said, tapping the camera app on his phone. I was going to head out and interview some users tomorrow. Real names, real lives, real impact. Caleb hesitated. Can we even afford that right now? Tyra shrugged. We can't afford not to. But that question lingered in the back of her mind. They were burning cash, what little of it they had. Bootstrapping only got you so far. She'd already sold her couch, her bike, and a pair of Jordans she swore she'd pass down someday. She was skipping meals now, real meals. Last night she'd gone to sleep chewing gum just to convince her stomach she wasn't starving. She looked at the board behind Marcus. It was covered in mock-ups for their next app version. They needed funds to finish development, desperately. Tyra reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the slip of paper with the number the intern gave her. She stared at it. Caleb noticed. You thinking about calling? Thinking. He'll say yes. You don't know that. I do, he said. You scare people in the right way. Tyra exhaled. They laughed. Caleb nodded. Yeah, but you're still here. She turned the paper over, studying the faded ink like it was a map out of the fire. Tomorrow, she said. I'll call tomorrow. That night Tyra couldn't sleep. Again. She stared at the ceiling above her mattress on the floor, tracing the same crack with her eyes, over and over. The radiator hissed like it was irritated by her ambition. The streetlight outside blinked through her curtainless window, casting an orange glow over the room. She opened her phone and pulled up a voice memo. Hit record. Note to self, she whispered. When this works, and it will, you're going to look back at this exact night, the one where your feet hurt and your throat's dry and you feel like you're drowning in to-do lists and overdraft notices, and you'll say, damn, I really did all that. She ended the recording, closed her eyes, woke up 3 hours later to an email alert. Your AWS free credits have expired. Your servers will shut down in 24 hours. Tyra sat up. Nope, she muttered. She was out of bed, pulling on her hoodie, boots, and scarf in seconds. She called Caleb on the walk over. We need a Band-Aid fix for the back end. I'm on it. They spent the morning coding like their lives depended on it, because in a way, they did. Around noon, she stepped outside to clear her head and call the number. She stood on the corner of Flatbush and Parkside, a subway screaming underground, wind slicing through her scarf. She dialed. It rang twice. A woman's voice answered, crisp and cool. This is Carmen Hill. Tyra hesitated. Then, hi. My name is Tyra Farley. I got your number from someone at Davenhall Capital. I run a company called CareLink, and I think I've built something your fund might want to see. Silence. Then Carmen said, You've got 90 seconds. Tyra didn't pitch from a deck. She pitched from her gut. She told Carmen about how her mother got misdiagnosed 3 times at county clinics, how she watched a neighbor die from a ruptured appendix because he waited too long to get help, how her app wasn't just code, it was infrastructure for people who had been systematically ignored. When she finished, Carmen said nothing. Tyra braced for the same tired silence, the same tight, thanks but no thanks. Instead, Carmen asked one question. Are you free next Thursday? Tyra blinked. Yeah. Come to Oakland. I want to meet the woman who scares Davenhall. Then the line went dead. Tyra lowered the phone and stared out at the street like it had changed color. She didn't jump. Didn't scream. She just whispered, It's starting. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled, Not the polite, presentable kind, but the kind that dared the world to keep doubting her. Tyra adjusted the collar of her blazer for the fourth time in 5 minutes. It wasn't nerves, at least that's what she kept telling herself. It was preparation, focus, intensity. She had flown across the country in a red-eye flight paid for with borrowed points and last-minute favors, and now she stood outside the glass doors of Hill & Co. Ventures in downtown Oakland, palms dry, shoulders squared, heart steady. The receptionist looked up, blinking slowly, almost disbelievingly. "You're here to see Miss Hill?" Tyra nodded. "She's waiting for you upstairs, elevator to the right, top floor." The building was newer than any place Tyra had ever pitched in before. Sleek concrete walls, geometric lighting, a whiff of lemongrass in the air. It wasn't Silicon Valley flashy. It was sharper, like it didn't have to beg for attention. As she stepped into the elevator, Tyra caught her reflection in the mirror. Tired eyes, but fire behind them. She'd worn the same blazer from the Davenhall pitch, on purpose. Let them see what they dismissed. The doors opened into a quiet executive suite, where Carmen Hill stood at the far end, flanked by a long glass table and a whiteboard littered with metrics from some other startup that had no idea how lucky they were. "Ms. Farley," Carmen said, her voice both smooth and razor-edged. "Come in." Tyra walked across the room, her heels echoing like war drums. "You're on time. That's rare these days." "I'm not trying to waste yours," Tyra replied, setting her bag down. Carmen didn't smile, but her eyes brightened slightly. She gestured to the seat across from her. "Let's talk about this fire you're building." Tyra started slowly, measuring her cadence. CareLink is a mobile-first platform designed to connect low-impact and underserved users with real-time access to health resources. We map community clinics, offer culturally responsive intake forms, integrate with Medicaid systems, and provide telehealth referrals when needed. And your revenue? Partner-based licensing. Clinics and local governments pay a subscription fee to be part of the network. Our value proposition is cost savings, decreased ER overflow, streamlined intake, preventive care access. We've already saved one pilot city approximately $87,000, 0 cents in hospital fees in our first 6 weeks. Carmen raised an eyebrow. "I read your pitch deck." Tyra paused. "Okay. I don't want you to pitch me," Coleman said. "I want you to show me who the hell you are." For a second, Tyra didn't know what to say. But then she did. "I'm a black woman who watched her mother get misdiagnosed at 3 clinics before someone finally listened. I'm the girl who learned to code at a public library because our school's computers were from 1996. I'm the founder who had to build an MVP on a cracked iPhone while working 2 side gigs. And I'm the woman who's not asking you to take a chance. I'm asking you to recognize something that's already happening." Carmen nodded slowly. "And if I say yes? Then you're not just writing a check, you're opening a door to people who've never been inside one of these buildings." Silence. Carmen finally leaned back in her chair. "I like founders who fight. I don't know another way to live. I'm offering you $750,000, 0 cents. Pre-seed. I'll take 15%. Tyra didn't blink. 10. Carmen smirked. A beat. Tyra extended her hand. "Deal." The shake was firm, no hesitation. Afterward, Tyra sat in the tiny cafe across the street, hands trembling for the first time in weeks, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the roaring buzz of victory in her chest. She ordered black tea with honey and texted her team, "We're funded." Caleb replied in all caps. Zoe sent 17 emojis. Marcus just sent, "Let's go." Tyra laughed into her cup, head tilted toward the ceiling, as though she could actually see the future coming for her. The next 3 months moved like a storm. Carmen didn't just fund them, she activated them. introductions to other angel investors, access to office space, dev tools, legal advice, a marketing consultant, a video team. Suddenly, CareLink wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Tyra hired 2 engineers and an outreach manager. They launched a full beta in 4 cities. The user base hit 10,000 in 6 weeks. And then came the invitation. A global health summit in Geneva, keynote speaker slot. One of the organizers had seen Tyra speak at a local university and pitched her name to the board. Carmen called her with the news. They want you in the final panel on digital health equity. Tyra blinked. Me? Yes, you. I know. You are. Tyra stood on that stage in Switzerland wearing a borrowed suit and a pair of shoes that pinched. The spotlight was blinding, but she kept her chin high. She talked about access, about barriers, about how tech had the power to heal or hurt depending on who wielded it. And when she said the words, "It's not innovation if it only helps the privileged," the room didn't just clap. They stood. Afterward, a journalist from Forbes approached her. "Would you mind a quick interview?" Tyra smiled. "I've got a minute." It wasn't quick. The piece went viral. Her inbox exploded. Tyra Farley became a name people recognized. The kind of name that sat on 30 under 30 lists. The kind of name that got phone calls from governments and venture firms and major tech players asking how they could partner or collaborate or invest. Tyra didn't say yes to everyone. She said yes to her own terms. But there was one name she didn't forget. Richard Ellison. When his assistant emailed asking for a second conversation, Tyra didn't respond right away. She read it twice, then closed her laptop. It would have to wait, because she was busy building what they said she never could. And she wasn't done yet. Tyra stood inside her new office 50 floors up, glass walls wrapping around her like a crown. The city below didn't look so tall anymore. It looked reachable, bendable, like something she could shape with her own hands. The CareLink logo etched into the wall behind her glowed gold in the early morning sun. Every inch of the space screamed of what used to be impossible. She was 28 years old. Her face had been on the cover of 3 major magazines in the past 6 months. Her app had crossed 1 million users. And now, for the first time in her life, she had nothing to prove. But it was never about her. The knock came sharp at 8:00 a.m. on the dot. Tyra didn't flinch. She already knew who it was. She'd invited him. Richard Ellison walked in with the air of someone pretending not to be uncomfortable. Same tailored suit, same polished smile, same sharp cologne. But the way he looked around the room, her room, betrayed something deeper. Regret. She motioned to the seat across from her desk. "Coffee?" He waved it off, settling in too quickly, as if pretending he belonged would erase the fact that he once laughed in her face. "I appreciate you making the time," he began. "I almost didn't," Tyra said flatly. Richard gave a forced laugh. "Yeah, I figured." Silence stretched between them like a wire. He cleared his throat. "You've built something remarkable." "I know. I was wrong. I know that too." He paused. "We've been watching CareLink's growth closely, and we believe there's an opportunity here. International expansion, multi-market scaling, even a potential IPO in the next couple years. We'd like to invest. Come in as strategic partners." Tyra studied him, the man who once smirked while dismissing her idea, the man who asked, "How do you expect to make money off people who don't have any?" Now here he was, asking to buy a piece of the thing he couldn't even imagine. "How much?" she asked. "50 million Series B, valuation at 1.5 billion. We'll take a 20% stake." Tyra leaned back, crossed one leg over the other. "And what would that partnership look like? We provide capital, PR support, introduce you to international markets, and in return, we'd like a board seat, a say in company direction." She nodded slowly. then shook her head. No. Richard blinked. Excuse me? You're too late. He sat forward. Tyra, I built this without you. We went hungry, slept on floors, survived off energy bars and code. We fought for every single dollar, every clinic partner, every user. And when we needed someone to believe in us, you laughed. Richard looked like he wanted to say something clever, but nothing came out. Tyra continued, We're not looking for partners who see numbers. We're looking for partners who saw value before the world told them we were valuable. He swallowed hard. So that's it? You won't even consider? Oh, I considered it, she said, standing up. But I didn't build CareLink to make you rich. I built it to make people seen. Richard stood, but it felt hollow, deflated. As he walked to the door, Tyra called out, Wait! He turned. She walked to her desk drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a copy of her original pitch deck, the one she presented to Davenhall. She handed it to him. He stared down at the familiar font, the mock-up screens, the vision he ignored. You keep that, she said, so you remember what it looks like when you underestimate the right one. He didn't say another word. Just tucked the paper under his arm and left. Tyra turned back toward the window. The sky was wide and glowing, the world bigger than ever, but now, finally, hers to touch. Her phone buzzed. It was Carmen. Board approved. The CareLink Venture Fund is a go. Congratulations, founder. Tyra smiled. They'd been planning it for 6 months. A fund designed to seed young women of color building the next wave of world-changing ideas. Not just tech, health, education, climate, justice. Ideas that didn't just disrupt, but healed. She called her team into the conference room an hour later. Caleb, Zoe, Marcus, all a little bleary-eyed but excited. Tyra stood in front of them and clicked to a slide that said, The CareLink Venture Fund. $25 million, 0 cents. First cohort, spring 2026. The room exploded in cheers. Marcus threw both fists in the air. We're doing this. We're actually doing this. Zoe wiped a tear and muttered, About damn time. Caleb looked at Tyra, his voice softer than the rest. You good? Tyra nodded. But he saw it. The weight behind her eyes. The journey that didn't leave scars so much as permanent tattoos. He handed her a tiny pin from his hoodie. An enamel rocket ship, a little cracked. From the early days, he said, keep it close. She held it in her hand and closed her fingers tight around it. Later that night, Tyra walked home alone. She could afford a car, security, a driver if she wanted. But she still liked the rhythm of her city's heartbeat, the noise, the unpredictability, the reminders of where she came from. At the corner of Malcolm X Boulevard, she passed a boy about 10 years old sitting on a stoop with a laptop on his knees. It was old, covered in stickers, missing a key, but he was focused, eyes locked in. Tyra stopped. What are you building? She asked. The boy looked up, a little startled. Then he smiled. A robot that talks back, he said. She chuckled. Sounds dangerous. He shrugged. I wanted to talk to kids who feel lonely, like ask them how their day is, tell jokes, stuff like that. Tyra crouched down beside him. That sounds like something the world needs. You think? I know. He tilted his head. You work in tech or something? Tyra smiled. Yeah, or something. She reached into her bag and handed him a small card. Her name, her company, a link. Keep going, she said. Then she walked away. The boy watched her go, card pressed to his chest like a secret. Back in her apartment, Tyra stood at the window with a glass of tea and stared out at the city. There would always be more work. More funding rounds, more barriers to break, more rooms to walk into where her presence would still feel like protest. But tonight she let herself breathe. She was no longer the woman hoping for a yes. She was the one deciding who got one. And for the first time in her life, she believed something deep and wild and unshakable. The world didn't just need her. It had waited for her.